F is for fire that burns down the whole town, used for uranium. Bombs. N is for no survivors when you're...
Lifetime. Those things aren't what fun is all about. No one told you life was gonna be this way. Jobs are changing road, love drives the other way. It's like you're always stuck in second gear. And when it hasn't been your day, your week, your month, been your year. I don't be there for you.
Several hours later, on the highest balcony of the palace, Princess Luna opened her eyes. She was standing with her legs firmly planted and her head turned toward the huge full moon she'd raised earlier. Her horn was blazing. Her ageless heart pounded, and her immortal lungs fought for breath. Sweat shone on her dusky hide. Like her royal sister, Luna had no need to sleep, or eat, or drink, doing so merely as an affectation. In years past, she had survived for 10 centuries bound on the moon, with frustration and boredom far greater threats than starvation and thirst. But every night for the past week, she had focused her magic and sought to explore the nighttime imaginings of her sleeping subjects. She'd found herself asleep, and gripped by a dream of her own instead. Luna spread her wings and took to the air, cutting through the sky like a blue-black arrow. Seconds later, she was standing at the edge of Princess Celestia's silken bed. The elder Alicorn soon stirred and awoke.
Luna? What's wrong?
My sister. Luna's voice slurred with the disorientation of one not quite fully awake.
We must speak. Now.
Celestia was not wearing her enchanted regalia, and without the relics, she was closer to Luna's size and a touch less awesome in demeanor, but no less lovely. She raised her head, her lustrous mane shifting on her pale neck.
Luna, the dream again?
Celestia smiled warmly.
Everything is fine, sister. I promise.
Luna flapped her wings huffily.
Vision, sister. It is a vision, a warning. We must find her. We must bring her here. As long as she stands on equestrian soil, we shall prevail.
Celestia frowned, but her eyes carried no anger.
Sister, the legends about those creatures were ancient before Equestria was even founded. It has been countless generations since one was even rumored to have come to our world. What makes you think—
Please, Sally!
Luna surged forward until her face was inches from Celestia's.
There is no time to lose. We have to send somebody to find her.
Luna!
Celestia drew back in alarm, but then settled down and gave her sibling a silent, appraising look.
Sister, today was a wonderful day for us. For Equestria, there wasn't the slightest hint of any trouble. What aren't you telling me?
Luna looked away. She bit her lip.
There are secrets in the dark that the light never touches, Celestia. I see things you don't.
She folded her wings and hung her head.
I need you to trust me on this. Please.
Celestia watched the gentle flowing of her sister's translucent, star-speckled mane for a long moment before moving closer to nuzzle her neck.
I do trust you, Luna. I do. If you're so sure it's important, we can talk about deciding on some pony to go and find this creature and bring her back.
Thank you, sister.
Luna nuzzled Celestia back, but her eyes were troubled and distant. The volcano was wreathed in acrid ashen smoke, filtering the early morning light and casting all colors in muted shades of gray. The only brightness came from the orange glow of the magma in the crater's core. On the volcano's rim, a dark figure stood, staring down at the molten rock. The elderly ram's emaciated frame was ill-suited even to the task of supporting the black-hooded cloak that covered it. Only his curling blue-black horns were visible. He didn't turn around when a teal Pegasus alighted a few paces behind him. The mare carried a full pair of saddlebags on her haunches.
You Took longer than I expected you to. Lightning dust.
The ram's wheezy voice was dry as tinder.
I was beginning to think you wouldn't come back.
I work better when the folks who hire me keep me in the loop. Maybe I would have got back quicker if you'd mentioned the dragons.
The Pegasus snorted disdainfully and flipped her short orange mane out of her eyes with a flick of her head. The action revealed a fresh claw mark on the side of her face. The ram let out a desiccated chuckle.
You said you were the fastest pony there is. I assumed you'd outpace them without any trouble.
His voice dropped in tone.
It's the nectar you needed to focus on. Did you fetch it?
Yeah, I got your plant goo.
She rummaged in her bags and retrieved a small clay jug.
It wasn't as tough as you said it would be. I guess those young dragons like dipping gems in this stuff to polish them. They pretty much cut it to pieces by the time I showed up.
The ram tensed, an irritated growl making the edge of his hood ripple.
Those simpletons!
His voice took on a fierce, throaty edge.
That was the first full-grown specimen in 200 years. They could have...
The ram caught himself, and then took a moment to calm down.
No matter. With this, I can begin.
The folds of the ram's coiled horns glowed with a starkly colorless inner light, and a similar aura surrounded the clay jug. It floated over, to hang in midair next to the ram as he trotted up to a small black iron cauldron which sat on the edge of the crater. With a further glow, of black mud lifted out of the cauldron.
Muck from a battlefield's blood-soaked soil.
The ram intoned, and then tossed the filth into the magma below.
Hey! Aren't you forgetting something?
The ram ignored the pony, magicking up and unstoppering the clay jug.
Nectar of a full-grown lashing flume.
The thick golden syrup spilled into the crater. Lightning Dust took a step forward.
You said you'd pay me!
Again, the ram's only reply was to continue feeding the volcano.
Fungus fed of a black rock oil.
Lightning Dust scowled.
Can you hear me?
A tainted sea's unwholesome spume.
Stop ignoring me, you old goat!
She stomped over to within a pace of the hooded ram and snagged his robe in her teeth. She jerked backward, uncovering her erstwhile employer. She gasped. The thing before her was bare to its blackened bones. Its fleshless jaws were lined with hooked fangs, and its empty sockets glowed with baleful red pinpoints in place of eyes. A tarnished silver bell hung around its neck bones.
A scrap of pickled hydra skin.
The skeletal horror turned to face her at last.
And blood from a traitor to her kin.
A silver-bladed sickle floated up out of the cauldron. Lightning Dust backed away. Her ears drooped.
What are you talking about? Me? You mean me? No way! I'm no traitor!
She turned and spread her wings.
Ah!
With a flare from the undead ram's horns, Dust found herself hanging in the air, as still as a stone. Her saddlebag slipped off her haunches and dropped to the barren ground.
Oh, but you are. By helping me, you damned your entire world.
Ah!
His magic swung the helpless Pegasus around, dangling her over the molten pit. The hovering sickle lashed out and made a thin slash across her right cutie mark.
Ah!
Dust cried out, galloping in midair and struggling against the monster's magical grip. Blood ran down her leg, and a few drops fell down into the darkening magma.
Ah, but you were right. I did promise you a reward, didn't I? Very well then. Have your life. If you can keep it.
Ah!
The aura surrounding the Pegasus vanished. Dust struggled to right herself and catch an updraft as she tumbled down toward the bubbling surface. The heat singed her hide, but she gathered some precious lift. All around her, the magma began to bubble and seethe, a purple-black corruption spreading through the orange ooze like venom in a wound. The magma's level began to rise, and columns of darkened sludge surged upward like the tentacles of some vast undersea beast. Dust squinted against the eye-stinging smoke and trusted her wind sense alone to help her dodge the rising obstacles. She streaked out of the crater, a tail length ahead of a rising flood of boiling slime, a jagged lightning contrail marking her path. Behind her, the ram's hollow, cackling laughter echoed, followed by his mocking cry.
Yes,